Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ProWritingAid 101 and Q&A. My name is Hayley Milliman. I am the head of education at ProWritingAid. My work is on creating a lot of the articles for our tool, as well as hosting our events and just telling the world about how amazing ProWritingAid is. So before we get started, I would love to know, and recognize a number of the names in the chat. I'd like to know, was anybody at Fantasy Week last week, Fantasy Writers Week? Is anyone coming from that? You can tell me in the chat. Madeline was awesome. Yep, it was fab. It was great. Awesome. Just need more. Kirsty, hey, Kirsty, hi. Vicky, good to see you. Okay. Jeff was there as well. Liz, hi Liz, good to see you. Okay, so we have some people from Fantasy Week. What about, is this your first ProWritingAid 101? For whom is this the first ProWritingAid 101? Yes, yes, some people have been here before. It's first for a lot of folks, okay. Who is a ProWritingAid Premium subscriber? Who has paid for ProWritingAid? Liz is, Vicky, Zaraful, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Jeff, okay. How about a ProWritingAid free subscriber? Who has subscribed to just the free version? Fred is pro. Free, Josie's got free, okay. Vivian's pro, Dwayne is free, great. What about who, is anyone not a ProWritingAid user at all and is just kind of curious about what the software is like? Jeanette, great, Janet. Jean is curious, Vivian's brand new, great. All right, awesome. So we have a great mix of everyone here. So it's so good to see all of you. Again, if you have not seen me, again, my name is Hayley. If you have been on Fantasy Week or any of the other webinars, you've likely seen me around or seen me in the inbox. But for those of you who are new to the product or new to our webinars, welcome. It is so great to meet you. And I am so excited to talk to you about the ProWritingAid software today. Today's session is going to be a really practical look at how to start getting up and running with ProWritingAid. So for those of you who've had it for a while, or for those of you who've been to this session before, you may recognize some of the things that we'll talk about today, but we'll go through a lot of the uses of the tool in depth today. So what we will cover first is how to upload a document in the web editor. We'll also talk about some of the key reports for the web editor and for the tool everywhere. I'll talk about the real-time grammar report, the summary report, and then I'll go a little bit into some of my favorite personal individual reports. For those of you who don't know me, I am both a fiction writer and I write a lot for work. So I'll talk through the different reports I use for each of those pieces. Then I will also talk about how you can find and set up the right reports for you, because our software is hugely customizable and there's a lot of different options. So talk about how you can focus on the right things for you, and also how you can fit it into your different writing routines. So again, because I write in a lot of different capacities, I use ProWritingAid differently in very different ways. So I'll talk about how I set that up. And then I will talk about integration. So I see we already have a question on Scrivener. I'll talk about how to use it with Scrivener. I'll talk about how to use it with Word, the Chrome extension, Google Docs, all that fun stuff. So if that all sounds good, let's just go ahead and dive in. Again, if you've just joined us, please make sure to put questions into the Q&A because the chat will tend to move pretty quickly. All right, so I am in the ProWritingAid Web Editor right now. So the first thing to know about ProWritingAid is that there are many different versions of ProWritingAid that you can use in many different places. Every single person who is on this webinar right now has ProWritingAid in the web editor. So if you're free or premium, everybody can use the web editor. And if you have a free account, you can use the web editor on up to 500 words at one time. If you're a premium, you have no word count limits. But basically what I'm in right now, the web editor, everyone can use it, free or premium. And if you're free, you would basically only be limited to 500 words. So the ProWritingAid Web Editor is very similar to something that you can type in like Google Docs or Word. It's also something that you can use specifically for editing depending on your process. So what I have shown right here is a sample text. And as you can see, I can type in this sample text like I'm doing right now, or I can upload documents into it. So depending on who you are, I'm going to just cut this so you can see. Depending on who you are, you could use ProWritingAid as kind of your word processor where you come to write in, or you can bring text from somewhere else into the ProWritingAid webinar, depending on what you need. So sometimes people bring text into the ProWritingAid webinar that they've written in something like Scrivener or Word. Sometimes they bring it from an email. Sometimes they write in those places, which I'll show you how to do later. But basically, the first thing I want to cover is that the ProWritingAid Web Editor can let you do a bunch of different things. You can either type in here, you can paste content in here, or you can upload a document. I am going to just repaste that content that I had before. But again, as you start a new document, you can upload something if you would like as well. Okay, so you can start with typed content, pasted content, or uploaded content. Now, when you have ProWritingAid starting to work, you will see different underlines kind of start to happen. So the basic kind of functionality of the tool is that it shows areas of potential improvements through different underlines. Now, up here on the top bar, we have all of the various different reports, which we'll go into more depth in a second. But basically, you have your text here that you're working on. You have all of your different reports up here. You can also access your settings, which we'll talk about shortly. And then you can access your menu, which is where you can come to save, upload, create a new document, etc. So this is kind of the top hand toolbar. All of your reports are here. Some are hidden on more reports. Your settings are up here. And then your menu is here where you can go back to different documents. Now, what you are seeing on my screen right now is the real-time report. The real-time report, like its name suggests, gives you edits in real time. So these edits happen as you are writing. So if I were to create a new, let me say, I am writing a new sentence and it'll have mistakes. So as I'm writing different sentences, it's going to come and find different mistakes that you make. It happens in real time as you're typing. That is found here. It's the very, very first report you'll see. You can see I have 33 different suggestions here. If I would like to turn this off because I don't want to receive corrections while I'm writing, I can just hit here to turn it off. And then you'll see all the corrections disappeared. So for those of you who like to get corrections as you write, turning on the real-time report will again give you suggestions in real time as you're typing, very similar to what happens in Word or Google Docs with their kind of spelling and grammar checkers. So the real-time report goes through a number of different suggestions. You'll see them kind of underlined here in 4 different colors. The main suggestions in the real-time report are spelling errors, grammar errors, style errors, and passive voice errors. So 4 types of content happen in the real-time report. Here is an example of a grammar error. Those are typically places where you have misplaced a comma or something like that, or where you have, been redundant or missed ending punctuation or anything like that. Spelling errors are places where you have misspelled a word. So if I spelled something like, let me see, maybe if I said spelling mistakes are bad, you will see a misspelled word here. All right, so this is a spelling error. Then you'll also find style errors. Style errors in the real-time checker typically enhance the style of your writing. And this is where ProWritingAid starts to be differentiated from, from tools like Microsoft Word, right? So tools like Microsoft Word have spelling and grammar checkers, which will find places where you've potentially misused ending punctuation or where you have misspelled words. Style errors is where something like ProWritingAid really starts to shine, because this is where you will find suggestions of words that are readability enhancements to make to your writing that are not technically incorrect, but could make your writing stronger. So for instance, saying I began to take off in my spacecraft is a little bit too wordy and not necessarily necessary. So you can just say took off, right? So this is where you start to find places where you can, again, eliminate words, where you can say things more simply, where you can find places where you have been redundant. And again, these style checkers are really the places where ProWritingAid starts to not just look at the places that you've made mistakes in your words, in your writing, but also places where you can start to make really effective style improvements to make your writing more impressive for your readers. So things like words that you've used that are too complicated, places where you can say something simply. Again, all of that's kind of in the real-time checker. You'll also, the final check you'll see here are for passive voice checks. Passive voice checks are places where, again, you've used passive voice, which is not technically incorrect, but can make your writing, here's a good example, can make your writing more wordy or ineffective. And again, reducing those can make it easier for your readers to read. So you've seen me do that already, but the kind of basic mechanism with ProWritingAid is to highlight a potential suggestion, and then you can simply click it to make that suggestion take part in your writing. So you just hover over suggestion, click on it, and then it goes into effect. Same thing if you wanted to reduce something, you could just cut it and then it would go away. Now I want to highlight a few things about the suggestion toolbar before we go further. So in the suggestion toolbar, you'll see a suggestion pop up of what change the tool is suggesting that you make. You'll also see a couple of different options here. So one is to disable the rule. If you disable a rule, that means you will no longer see it in any of your documents moving forward. So be very, very careful about using the disable rule option, because again, that will disable it for all of your documents moving forward. Ignore means that you'll just ignore this specific instance. And if you hit ignore, you won't see it anymore if you rerun that report. So if you're just like, hey, I'm actually okay with this particular suggestion in this particular place, hitting ignore will again allow you to remove it there. You can also report something incorrect by hitting ignore, which is really, really helpful for us. So if you see anything that's mistaken, or a suggestion just doesn't quite make sense, hitting the report incorrect button will send that to our support team and give us a good opportunity to make it easier for you and to optimize our software. Now, you can also see, as you have suggestions, this little orange eye up in the top of many of the suggestions. This pops up articles and videos, which can help you decide whether or not to make suggestions, or to take suggestions rather. So one of the kind of key features that differentiates ProWritingAid is its ability to give you information about your writing. We are so passionate about making sure that you understand what the suggestions are and whether or not to make them, because many of the things that we will be talking about today are not necessarily errors, but they're just places that you could improve. So for instance, the word commence, you might decide that you want to keep the word commence, or you might decide that you want to keep an instance of passive voice. A lot of these are down to your choice as the writer. So these suggestions help to give you examples of why you have this, how to improve it, and then you can decide, do I want to keep manage to elude, or should I just go to elude? So those orange eyes are really, really helpful. Again, they're in most of the suggestions to decide whether or not you want to choose it. Okay, so that is the real-time checker. Again, it gives high-level suggestions in 4 areas: grammar, style, spelling, and passive voice. The other thing that you can see in real time is something called our goals toolbar. So I had this collapsed over here, and you can see that this little arrow will expand it so you can see it. Now, the goals toolbar is another place where we start to differentiate and really get deep into the specific suggestions for your document. So while the the real-time checker will give you high-level suggestions in those 4 categories, goals are completely customizable to the type of document you're writing. And this is something I found so helpful as I am going back and forth to the different types of writing I work on. So goals go through all of the kind of high-level style and copy edits that would be suggested for your particular document type. So this is actually a science fiction document, so I can switch it to science fiction, and I will receive custom goals based on science fiction documents. Now you'll see that this science fiction document has suggestions around sentence length, on things like readability, on glue index, emotion tells. But if I were to change this to something like case studies, a lot of those things would shift, right? Now I have suggestions on business jargon, suggestions on complex paragraphs, term-based issues, which relate to kind of the custom suggestions you make for your business. So each of these document types has different custom suggestions for your document type. We do this by comparing basically thousands and thousands of text in a particular area, so thousands of historical fiction texts, horror, magical realism, etc. And then we create these ranges of what published works typically have. So we have found that most published works in science fiction have a grammar, style, spelling score of 80% or higher. Most of them have a sentence length score of between, let me highlight it, 10 and 18 words. So if your average sentence length is higher than that, again, not necessarily saying that you are wrong, it's saying that you are outside of the particular band for your specific genre. So the way that you can read the goals report is by seeing all of these particular areas. These little bands are basically what the, again, most published works for your genre have. And then you can see where you're in the kind of band or where you are outside. So when I come in and I start to write or start to edit a fiction piece of work, I will do the real-time checker first to get a sense of my like high level changes that I can make. And then I come in and I set my document type and I take a look at all of the kind of key ideas for my specific document. And don't worry, I know we have a lot to go through. So there's going to be a replay of this as well if you need to go through it after. But again, I'll just recap quickly. Again, our real-time checker gives the 4 categories: grammar, style, spelling, and passive voice. And then goals here on the right-hand side is customizable to your document type. And you will see all of the different reports that we think are most important for your specific document. So slow pacing, long sentences, glue index, etc. And you can make changes up here on the top right to change your particular document type and receive custom suggestions for what that is. So again, if I have my cover letter, you'll see we have custom suggestions for what they suggest or what we suggest to have in a cover letter specifically. And then if I went to script, I would have script-based suggestions, etc. So this is really, really helpful to be able to go through all of the different key areas that you can see for your document. So let's see, I'm just taking a look at the questions. I will go into Glue Index in just a second. That's one of my favorite reports. I see a couple of people have asked about that. So we'll go into that in just a second. But basically, again, real time is all of the kind of key 4 categories, then goals get a little bit more specialized. Okay. All right, looks like we don't have any questions specifically on the goals, so I'll start to go more into the more in-depth reports, and then we'll come back to some of the other questions as we go. Okay, so Margarita asked, how is the real-time goals glue index different from the sticky report? Great question, and I'll show you right now. Okay, so the suggestions that you have here on the right-hand side in the goals panel all take you to the different reports that you have up here. So if I click sentence length, all of a sudden I open the sentence length check, right? If I go back to my goal and I click readability, I am now in the readability report. So you can see I could also get to that by simply checking the readability report up there. I could also have done that by clicking the sentence length report up here. So what the goals does is basically puts it all in one place for you, so you don't have to run each of the reports individually. You can see all of the different reports that are most important for your specific document, and then you can go through and click on the ones where you're out of the suggested range. So what's super helpful is to say, okay, you know, I don't necessarily need to work on slow pacing because I'm in this proper range. So I'm not going to waste time going up here and running the pacing report. I can already see in these particular suggestions where I am, again, outside of the recommended zone, and then I can go specifically to those. So if you see a particular zone, and I'll go to Glue Index, because a lot of people have asked about that, where you are outside of that range, again, all you do, I'm just going to show it one more time, all you do is click on the name of the report up in the top. So I was at Glue Index, and then you are taken to that report itself, and you'll see the specific suggestions for that report. So that, again, helps you really, really narrow down and go quickly through which are the areas where you are outside of the bounds of your particular document type and how can you improve it from there. So Glue Index is something a bunch of folks have asked about, and I am happy to explain it because it's one of my most favorite reports. So the Glue Index refers to the percentage of sticky words, glue words in your documents. We like to categorize words into 2 broad categories at ProWritingAid. One is working words and one is glue words. Working words are the words that make your sentence make sense. They're the most essential information. So think about words like your nouns and your verbs. Glue words are all of the other words in the sentence. So if I look at this sentence here, for instance, some of my working words are words like hangers and spacecraft and suit, weapons, eye. All of these are working words. They're words that tell you what the sentence is about. If I changed, weapons to kitchen equipment, the sentence would change. If I changed spacecraft to bus, the sentence would change, right? These are all the words that are essential to the meaning of the sentence. They're not all the only words in this sentence. It also has words like to and the and in, all of these other words that kind of make the sentence stick together and make sense, but I could potentially switch to a different word, or I could, kind of change up the construction and the sentence would mean basically the same thing. So that's basically a glue word. It's something that makes the sentence stick together, but you can typically reduce, remove, or replace those glue words, and the essential meaning of the sentence would be more or less the same. So why is that important? Some sentences have too many glue words. This is not one of them. This is a fine sentence with a lot of working words, but some sentences tend to have too many. So this is an example of a sentence that has too many glue words. It has a lot of different words that kind of make the sentence stick together, but it has enough of them that the sentence is kind of wordy and unwieldy. It's a good way of thinking about a sticky sentence, is that it's not necessarily incorrect. It's just typically a little bit too wordy. So the sticky sentences check finds all of the sentences in your document that are that have over 40% glue words. Semi-sticky is 40 to 60, sticky is 60 or above. And then it lets you figure out what the glue words are in there, so you can potentially rewrite the sentence and make it easier to read. So glue index basically just refers to the percentage of your document that is sticky versus not sticky. We typically recommend about 40% of your words are sticky or are glue words and 60% are working. So if you're over that, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that your writing is incorrect, but it can mean that your writing is a little bit difficult and the sentences are a little overly wordy. So you can go and make changes from that. So that is one of my favorite reports because I tend to be overly wordy. You might be able to tell from me talking about this, but I tend to be overly wordy, and that is something I typically want to avoid, particularly in writing, if I'm writing for web or anything like that. So coming in and finding my glue index will let me see if I am outside of the recommended range. Again, I just hit that particular name to go to the report, and then I'll see all of the problematic sentences and I can decide whether or not to change them. So that is the sticky sentences report. It tells you, again, what are the sentences that are overly wordy that you could, again, reduce, remove, or replace some of those glue words to make it more effective. So let me just take you through a couple more of my favorite reports here. So some of the great fiction ones that I use are dialogue tags. So we typically recommend, again, sticking to said and asked in most instances, not all. Again, you'll see we have a range here, so it's not necessarily all, but it is most. So I can see places where I've used unusual dialogue tags like reply instead of said. I can also see places where I have used a dialogue tag with an adverb. So that typically indicates in fiction that you've done some more telling rather than showing. And so it, again, makes it more, makes your writing more vivid. So somebody asked if I could do a correcting a sentence with excess glue. So I'll just show that really quickly. So here's a glue sentence. Let me see if this one will flag as a glue sentence, this one that I just did here. All right. Okay, here we go. Yes, it did. Okay, so here is an example of a sentence that is sticky. Now, some of your sticky sentences will have suggestions for how to change them. So here's a potential suggestion that you could change. Or you might have sticky sentences where you have the glue words indicated and you can change them that way. So when I have just the glue words, what I'll typically do is look at the glue words and then decide how to rewrite the sentence. So in this sentence up here, I could say, I went to the school's backyard to check for a bicycle for class. So much simpler, much more to the point. The sentence is exactly the same. It has exactly the same meaning as it did before. And it's just shorter, more specific and to the point. I could also say I checked the school's backyard for a bicycle. Bicycle to use in class. Again, shorter, simpler, more to the point. Depending on the type of sentence, again, you might have a suggestion for how to write it, or you might have just the glue words and then you can change the sentence from there. But there's basically no correct way to do it. Even if you have the suggestions, you'll see that there's multiple. The goal is not to get to one perfect sentence. The goal is to look at the sentence, see that there are an additional or an excessive amount of glue words and potentially rewrite the sentence to make it more effective. So there's not one particular way to do it, but you can either look at the suggestions if they have them, or you can remove those glue words to rewrite it yourself. But it's helpful for me to know the sentences where I have those heavy amounts of glue words to make those changes if I need to. Okay. So let's keep going. So that is an example again of some of the sticky sentences actually are for all of the for all document types. They're super useful. I tend to use the dialogue tags reports again a lot when I am writing fiction. Again, I can look at places where I've used dialogue tags with adverbs where I haven't done a great job of telling rather than showing. I will go through a couple more of just my favorite reports while I'm here, and then we'll keep going and talking about integrations because I know we have a lot of questions on those. So a couple of my other favorite reports. So when I'm writing fiction, I tend to use the sensory report a lot. The sensory report tells you how many words of different sense types you've used. Most of us tend to lean really heavily into sight, but particularly if you're trying to build a really realistic world, it's really important to use sense words of all of the other types of senses. So sound, touch, hearing, smell. This helps us understand what our breakdown is and potentially make changes. I also use the echoes and repeats report on basically every single thing that I write because I tend to repeat myself a lot. So the echoes report will find places where you have closely repeated specific words or phrases. So you can decide, again, should I add more variety? Or, if it's the character's name, maybe it's okay that you have it that many times. But it can help you find places where you've used the same words and phrasing often and suggest different ways to update those so you can make it more, just more interesting. Some other things that I really love are the word explorer. So if I just double click on a word here and then click word explorer, I can see all of these different types of words to shift. So I can find synonyms in the thesaurus. I can find cliches that use this word, like riding a bike. I can find collocations of the word. I can find common phrases that use this word. So like words like bike rentals, bike lanes, etc. Find examples of it from books, movies, etc. It's really, really helpful to explore and see all of the different kind of types of words that you can use. So this is very, very helpful for me as, if I find that I have been closely repeating myself or echoing myself, I can come in and again, just double click on any word. You'll see an immediate thesaurus, and then you can open the word explorer to come see a bunch of different features or a bunch of different versions of those words. So those are some of my favorite things to do for fiction. If I am writing nonfiction for work, I spend a lot of time in the style report. The style report, again, if I'm writing for web or writing email copy or something like that, it's very important to have your work be readable and clear. So I spend a lot of time finding places where I have used passive verbs, where I have readability enhancements that I can use to make my writing more effective. And all of these different things are, again, things that I use for all different types of writing all throughout the day. Okay, so those are some of the kind of main reports. I want to take some time to go into some of our integrations now, and then we can go into questions. So let's look at the Chrome extension. So I don't know if any of you are fiction or fan fiction writers who write in Wattpad, but the Chrome extension will show, this is a good example of our Chrome extension. Basically, the Chrome extension works almost every single place that you would write on the web. So if you are writing in Facebook, a Facebook post, or Twitter, or Medium, or Gmail, or anything like that, the Chrome extension will give you real-time suggestions, just like the real-time report did over here. You can see them highlighted over here the same way we did before. So you'll see we had the passive voice suggestion here. We have the redundant phrasing, and you can make all of those changes right here in your document. So wherever you're writing, this is Wattpad, but again, anywhere you're writing online, you can find those suggestions. Now you can also, if you have the Chrome extension open, scroll down to kind of the bottom of whatever you're writing. Wattpad's a little bit bigger, so it's a little further down, but if you're in Gmail or something, it'll be closer. And you'll find this little green button here. If you click that, you will see your full goals report that I just talked about. And again, you can switch your document type here. So I could switch my document. And then you can also open the full editor to see everything in the ProWritingAid editor right where you are. So it's really convenient. And again, you'll see the real-time suggestions where you are, but you can also hit this button to open the full Chrome extension and get all of those reports there. Now I'm going to take you over to my desktop app, which is here. So this desktop app will look very, very similar to the web editor that I was just showing you. However, it does allow you to read several more file types. So I have a Scrivener file in here right now. You can see my folders are very, very similar to other types of Scrivener or to how it kind of looks in Scrivener. You can pull up any particular document. This is just a sample Scrivener document, but you can pull up any of your documents in Scrivener and it will look exactly as it did over in Scrivener. So all of the exact text. So the way that this works with Scrivener right now is that you open a document in the ProWritingAid desktop app. You will be able to make edits here. So, pretend I said make my edits here. Then once you save this document and reopen it over in Scrivener, all of your edits appear. So you basically save, reopen in Scrivener. Let me see if I can pull up Scrivener. So now I have Scrivener over here, and you can see I have my sentence that says make my edits here. Now you'll notice that the ProWritingAid app did not have all the formatting, but it doesn't matter. Over here, all of my formatting was retained, even though it didn't look like it in the desktop app. Again, over here, I have all of the same formatting that I did previously over in, previously in my Scrivener document, even though I didn't see it in my ProWritingAid one. So that's how it works in Scrivener. We're actually working on a way to integrate right into Scrivener very soon. So that should be hopefully up in the next maybe month, 2 months as we go through beta testing on it. But for right now, basically open your desktop app, open your Scrivener file, and then reopen it over in ProWritingAid, and you will see it over there. I'm just going to show you a couple more quick things, and then we can jump into questions. So I want to show the Chrome or the Google Docs add-in, because that's something a lot of folks use too. So let's see. Okay, so I am back now with my Google Docs add-on. The Google Docs add-on looks like this, and you can make a couple of different changes. So if you hit Improve Documents, it will run through your documents, and you will see the ProWritingAid Web Editor pop up just like it did in the web editor. It looks exactly the same. You will make your changes. So make my changes here. You can run through all of the different reports, and then you just hit Apply Changes and Close, and it applies to your Google Docs. So you can see that sentence I wrote is just right here. It's just like magic. It's very, very easy. So it allows you to, again, make all of your changes right in Google Docs, get the kind of full power of the ProWritingAid Web Editor there so that you can use it at that stage. Now, the other thing that I want to show you, give me 1 second, is the Word add-on. All right. And my Microsoft Word is not working right now, not my ProWritingAid, just my Microsoft Word. But I'll just show you from this blog post. ProWritingAid works in Microsoft Word just right in Word itself. So once you install it, it will be a button on your top panel. Depending on, this is for the Mac add-on, so it's to the far right. I believe for Windows, it's up here on the top. But depending on where you are in your version of Word, you'll basically have another button or another menu option for ProWritingAid. You'll be able to log in, and you will see exactly all of the same suggestions you have. So here's an example of the goals editor. You can click to open the full editor, and you can make all of those changes. So you'll see this very same thing. Just like in Google Docs, you'll be able to apply those changes, and they're right back in Microsoft Word, which makes it really easy to edit right where you write. So if you don't use Scrivener, or you're just exactly in one of those places, it's very, very helpful. And then just a couple other quick things. Again, I know we're covering a ton. There's so much to do with this software, and you will get the replay, so you'll be able to check it out later. But just a couple other cool, quick features before we go into questions. You can always change your language type. So I am American, but we work with most of our team, or not most, but a lot of our team is British. So you can switch to British English, Australian, Canadian, etc., and get custom suggestions from that. A couple other cool features that you can do, let me just move the little Zoom window, is come into your app settings. And you can, if you're writing fiction, select a particular type of author you would like to compare your work to. So I maybe want to compare my work to Amy Tan or Dan Brown or whoever. And then your summary report will tell you how you stack up versus that person. And then you can also create what's called a combo report. So a combo report is up here on the top bar. And this basically runs all of your favorite reports at one time. So you'll see we've got sticky sentences, we've got dialogue tags, we've got diction, we've got spelling, grammar, etc. You can add all of the different reports that you like there. And you can choose which reports are in your combo report from your settings. So again, you get to your settings by hitting settings, then app settings, and then within here, you can select all of the reports that you want to pop up when you run that combo report. So if you want a one-stop shop, the combo report is very helpful. Okay, let's see what else we can cover. So we talked a little bit about integrations, Chrome extension, we talked about Google Docs, we talked about Word add-in. I will cover the blog and stuff in a second, but let's look at some of our questions before we keep going. Okay, let's see. So Mark asked, many of your users are writers. Can you offer synopses or settings for queries, synopses, and cover letters? So we have cover letter right now, Mark, but yes, we can definitely add those. Just write into hello@ProWritingAid.com, and I think we can definitely do that. We talked a little bit about how it works with Scrivener. Oh, so somebody asked, how can I exclude my unique character name? So what you can do is, let me see, create a new character name. Character new. So if I wanted to do something like that, is happy. Basically any word that is misspelled, I can, maybe somebody's added character new, maybe past Hayley added character new in there. Let's make this way. If you have a misspelled word, you're able to highlight over it and add it to your dictionary. Of course, apparently I've done all of these before. Let's find a new name. Oh, here's one. So I can just add to dictionary and then it's all of a sudden correct. And that can work, that works for words or names. Okay. Someone says I exclusively use the word add-in for my work. It's easier to keep track of my directory. Is there a way to copy my Word directory? So if you upload your Word document, you can, but I would say just use the word add-in. I think that the word add-in has all of the same examples, all the same features. So if you use the word add-in, you should be able to use your Word directory exactly like that. Okay, so someone says, when I import from Google Write and make corrections, it always removes your formatting and removes indents for paragraphs. I would write in for that. It shouldn't change any of the formatting. You should be able to just save the formatting. The only thing I'll say is that if you import by copying and pasting, that might change the formatting. So copying and pasting tends to add little characters everywhere. But if you're just saving the same file types, it should, without copying and pasting, like uploading and exporting, the saving should be the same. But if you're copying and pasting, all bets are kind of off for formatting, and it can get a little funky going both places, which is why, like, if you've ever copied a document to Gmail or something, it gets all weird. There's just always kind of formatting issues. So if you're uploading and it's still giving you grief, I would email hello@ProWritingAid.com to ask about that. So Sandra asks, can I add or create my own rules? Yes, you can. So we have something called the style guide. And the style guide, which I will, oh, this is the wrong one. Here we are. I'm going to put this in the chat, Sandra. This blog article will teach you how to create custom rules, and there it can go really, really, really in depth. So you can create many, many, many custom rules if you would like to. Jean asks, is the 50 limit per document or per time period? So you can check up to 50 words at a time. So you could upload a document that's longer, but it'll only check the first 500 words. Okay. So someone says, I recognize the word Explorer option isn't available on the web editors on iPad. It's available in the web editor everywhere, but we're not super iPad compatible. I do use on my own iPad Pro the web editor occasionally, but mainly desktop, yes. Dorvilla asks, so the file must be closed in Scrivener before opening in ProWritingAid. Yes, you must you must close the file in Scrivener and then open in ProWritingAid. Someone else just asked, so I'm going to show one more time about this. Okay, so here's Scrivener. So I have the Scrivener file, and I'm going to write, this is my Scrivener file. Then I'm going to save my Scrivener file and close it. Then I'm going to stop sharing and I'll go over to ProWritingAid's desktop app. Let me see. All right, now I'm going to go back and open that testing document that I had. You'll see I have the sentence, this is my Scrivener file. Oh, I'm actually missing a verb. So I will change it here in ProWritingAid. Again, I will save and close. And then if I go back to Scrivener, let me close this. So if I come back to Scrivener, oh, hold on, I just closed Scrivener. And I open my recent project. Oops, sorry, it keeps failing to start my screen sharing. Okay, now I'm in. You'll see that it is shared over, and now that correction that I made is right here with all of the changes. So obviously you would not do this if you were just making like a one-word change in Scrivener. This is very inefficient. But if you were doing an editing in like a larger scale edit in Scrivener, or excuse me, of a Scrivener document in ProWritingAid, then you would make the changes. I don't recommend doing it very slowly like I just did for just one change. But basically save, close, open, save, close, and then you're good. And again, we're working on a way to integrate right into Scrivener, hopefully very soon. Okay, someone says, I can't turn the real time on. You should be able to. So I would send a report to hello@prowritingaid.com if that's giving you an issue. You should be able to just come in here and run real time. So I just turned it off, but if you just run real time, it'll start to show it like this. So just check to make sure it doesn't say off, and then you should be able to do that. And if not, email hello@prowritingaid.com and they'll help you. It does take a second. You'll see like when I turn it off, it takes, however long for it to populate. And that being said, it'll take longer the longer your document is. So if you have a really, really, really long document in Scrivener, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pages, it'll take longer. Okay. When you finish a document that was uploaded, why are there two versions? You do not have to change it every time you save it. It'll depend on what type of file it is. So for instance, in Scrivener, it saves the exact same file type. But if you're exporting a different type of document, depending on, if it's Word or something else, it might save as a different file. Again, it kind of depends which document type you're working with. It'll be a little bit different for each of them. And with the saving, but you don't necessarily have to. It depends more about that. Okay, so Connie says, I'm a fiction writer. How do you disable dialogue from the reports? So let's see. So if I come in settings, and then I go to my app settings and scroll down, I have something called dialogue settings. And this allows you to ignore things like redundancies, diction errors, cliches, etc. So those no longer appear as long as they're between quotes. So that can be helpful if you have characters who are speaking, in cliches or something like that. Yeah, Vicky, it should be saving. So email hello@prowritingaid.com and they can sort you out, because it's not normal for it to not save. It should be saving. Okay, someone asked, is there an extension for Safari? Yes, there's a Safari and a Firefox and a Microsoft Edge extension that work very similarly to the Chrome extension, so you can use those as well. Okay. I honestly, I do not know what the latest version of ProWritingAid is. That's a great question. But it should prompt you if you go to the menu on your Mac. So like the top where it says ProWritingAid, and then scroll down and hit About ProWritingAid, it'll tell you its most recent version. So I'm on 2.0.56. So I do think that you, Gerald, can upgrade, or excuse me, update to the most recent. Okay, and then Mary asked, what is Scrivener? So Scrivener is a document, it's a word processor similar to Microsoft Word, but a lot of fiction or people who are working on dissertations or something a lot larger will use that because it has a really nice file system to be able to organize your different files. So a lot of people who are working on longer term projects will use something like Scrivener to edit it. Jeff asks, is there going to be an option in the future to add a typewriter sound? Not that I know of, but that could be fun. I love tactile stuff when I'm writing. I have a clicky keyboard like that for that exact reason. Okay, just a couple quick things. I think we've gotten through all of our questions. So a couple other quick things. For those of you who weren't at Fantasy Week last week, we do writing events, and we love to support our writing community. So we have free webinars like the one you're on now that go way in depth about things like fiction writing, things like business writing, all of these different things. So you can check out ProWritingAid.com/webinars to see all of those. We also have a huge blog with thousands and thousands of articles that you can engage with. And we also have free ebooks that are part of your ProWritingAid subscription. So feel free to use all of those tools as well as you're going through. Okay, and I think those are all the questions I have. Jeff asked if there will be an extension for Focuswriter. Jeff, I think that the the Scrivener integration that I was just talking about is going to allow you to integrate across many different types of platforms. So I believe that should also help with it. But we're in kind of beta testing of that right now. Okay, any other questions I can answer for anyone? Jeff, send hello@prowritingaid.com an email, and we can figure out if we can get you on that beta test list. And there's no restriction to the number of computers to use. It might just be that you're not using the correct login information. You should be able to get help. Oh, Jeff, it's just hello@prowritingaid.com. Vicky, it will, when using Word, it's I think defaults back to general, so you might be able to re-update that when you're using your goals report, but it should save like within the document. So if it's not like the first time you run it, you might have to update it, but after that it should save. So if it's not, again, I would email hello@prowritingaid.com to check that out. Any other questions I can answer? Oh, good. I'm so glad that this is so helpful. It's, yeah, really helpful. Oh, great. Thank you all. Cameron, so ProWritingAid will often ignore formatting, but when it ignores formatting, it'll reappear when you upload it or export it again. So it's very, very helpful to know that ProWritingAid is not built for formatting in the same way. It just doesn't have the same complexity of level of formatting that other programs have. So if you formatted somewhere else, just save it and then reopen the file and it'll be there. And Gerald asks, you seem to say that you can go back and forth between Scrivener and ProWritingAid. So Gerald, not yet. We're just working on that right now. It's in beta testing right now. So that ability will be available very soon, but it's not available currently. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Again, I'm going to put the email in the chat if anyone has any questions. It's just hello@prowritingaid.com. We are more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And I hope that you all just enjoy the software and have a great time using it. So good to see all of you. Have a great rest of your Monday. Bye, everyone.